Welcome to another monthly reading recap. This last month in April, I read 32 books, which is absolutely crazy. So we're going to go through my thoughts on every single one of them and whether they are worth your time. I split these up by genre, so we're going to start with fantasy. I finished 4 fantasy books this month, and the first one was the first book I read this month, which is The Book of Doors, and this is such a 5-star read to me. I loved this book so much. This is compared to like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue meets The Midnight Library, and I think that's pretty accurate, and I just adored this so much. This book is about a woman who works in a bookstore, and this very regular old customer unfortunately dies while she's doing one of her shifts, and he leaves behind this book for her. It's called The Book of Doors, and it contains like magical powers that basically if you possess the book, you can imagine in your head any single door, and you will then have that door in front of you. Even if that's in like Europe, you can really go anywhere you want with this, and that means this is a very dangerous book that's wanted by a lot of dangerous people. And so this book takes like very dark turns at times, but still stays very whimsical and just magical, and I love this so much. Dawn of the Darkest Day is a very good romantasy, but it has a lot of triggering things in it, so check your trigger warnings because there's some dark things in this book that not everybody will want to read about. It is very thick, and it took me a long time to get through this, but I overall gave it 4.5 stars. I thought it was very well done. This is like a forced marriage situation between this girl who is living in another town, and she's forced to marry the king in a town that basically tried to kill her entire townspeople, so it's not somebody she ever wants to be around, let alone be married to. I won't talk about the plot of Bands of Mourning because this is book 3 in Era 2 of Mistborn, so I don't want to spoil anything, but I loved this. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm really excited to finish the series off next month with the last book. The Mars House was a very big disappointment for me. I ended up giving this 2 stars. I found this book to be kind of like problematic, and so you can check like on Goodreads, there's a couple reviews that kind of explain way more eloquently than I could about what's wrong with this book, but I did not appreciate some of the things in this book, and overall just definitely would skip this one. Moving on to thrillers, of which there are a lot. I read a lot of thrillers every single month, so this is no exception. This is my favorite Megan Miranda book I've ever read. This is Daughter of Mine, and I highly recommend this one. This is incredibly atmospheric. This one's about a woman who goes back to her hometown after her father passes away, only to find out that her father left her the home, much to her brother's dismay, and so she's there trying to figure out like what's going on here, and the lake that's in the town is receding because they're going through a drought, and there's a lot of secrets in this town that are being unburied that might lead her to figure out what happened to her mother so many years ago when her mother disappeared. Love, love, love this one. Absolutely 5 stars. One of the Good Guys is a book published by Gillian Flynn's publishing house, and that set me up for very high expectations, and overall I was impressed with this. I found it very twisty and fun and unique. This one's about a guy who's recently separated from his wife, and he seems like just the perfect guy, so like you have no idea why his wife would want to be leaving him, and so he's moving out to like this countryside because it's somewhere that she never wanted to live, and he's kind of starting his own thing out there, and you find out a lot of information. In this countryside, there's 2 women who go like missing while he's there, and so you're trying to uncover the mystery behind it, and it's very good. I gave this one 4 stars, by the way. Missing Clarissa is a very fun YA mystery book. It follows this group of teenagers who are trying to uncover what happened to this girl who went missing 20 years ago without a trace. They're doing this for a school project, so they're making like a podcast out of it, and I found this very fun. I gave this one 4.25 stars, and then I gave 5 stars to Night Watching. I found this book so eerie and creepy. I was listening to this on audio, and it was creeping me out, like just being alone in my home in the broad daylight. Like I was creeped out from this in the best of ways. It's about this single mom who she knows there's an intruder in her home that's trying to get to her and her kids, so they hide away in this little like hiding department in their house that nobody knows about, nobody knows how to get to, and the guy who broke in is trying to like taunt them to come out and try to make her kids make noise, and it's just so incredibly eerie. Want to Know a Secret, I gave 3.75 stars. I really enjoyed this read, although I really hated the ending twist. It just kind of really bothered me. It just took like the twist way too far in like an unbelievable kind of not great way in my opinion, but it follows this woman who has a lot of different secrets that are kind of being uncovered. She's being taunted via like text message. Basically she has no idea who it is who's texting her, and she's trying to figure out who it is who knows all this information about her that should not be known. No Way Out is a pretty solid thriller. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's not my favorite, not my least favorite, but it follows these 2 kids who are found in a house fire, and there are no parents home, so they're trying to figure out like where the parents are. Were these kids like kidnapped? Were the parents just like, did they leave? Did the parents die somewhere? Like they have no idea, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this. It took place around Christmas, which is like even weirder. The Wife Upstairs is very Verity-esque, where there's this man who is hiring help for his wife who is kind of disabled. She had an accident falling down the stairs, so he's hiring somebody to kind of just be her companion during the day because she can't really do anything on her own. I gave this one 3.75 stars. I had a similar issue with it where I didn't love the very ending twist. I thought it just was unnecessary and took it just one step too far. Bye Baby is so good. It follows these 2 really good friends who were friends kind of for a very long time, but one of them has been married now and has a kid and has kind of moved into a different phase of her life, and the other one is not like that at all. She's still single, and she's trying to grasp onto this friendship even though the one friend is kind of outgrowing her. This book opens with that friend kidnapping the baby of the friend who's outgrowing her, and you have no idea why she's going to do that. Throughout this book, you're trying to figure out what's going to happen, and it's just like really nerve-wracking while reading this one, and I really enjoyed it. It is labeled as a contemporary fiction, but I kind of feel like it was a little more thriller-y. The Couple Next Door is about this couple that goes to a party at their next door neighbor's house, and they leave their baby in the crib at home, but they bring the monitor, and they decide if they check on the baby every 30 minutes and keep the monitor on them, even though the camera is broken on it, but they can hear audio, then they're going to be okay, until one of them goes to check on their baby, and the baby is not in the crib anymore. The baby's missing. Now you're starting to doubt every single character in this book. You have no idea who to trust, and I really like this one, although I did not like any of the characters in this book, so I gave this one 4 stars. If you like reading true crime, then this is an absolute must-read. This is A Serial Killer's Apprentice, and this case is insane, but it's very gruesome. This book goes into very specific details about everything that this serial killer did, and I just wouldn't recommend it unless you're okay with stomaching that. I loved it because I've read dark books like this, but just check into that before you read it. I really like this book because it follows this absolutely wild case, but then also the second half kind of goes into the psychology behind like the serial killer and how to like look out for warning signs of people like this. But this case is crazy because the serial killer trained up this 14-year-old boy. Instead of killing him like he did all the other kids that he kind of came in contact with, he trained up this boy to basically be his apprentice. He trained him to kill other people. He trained him to do whatever he wanted him to do, basically, until this apprentice killed the serial killer and turned himself into the police. And it's wild. This person who turned himself into the police, the apprentice, he's still in jail. He's like in his 60s now. This case is a little bit older. It took place in Texas. But he helped kill multiple people. The serial killer killed like upwards of almost 30 individuals. It's just an absolutely wild case. All right, 3 more to go. The next one is The Return of Ellie Black, and I liked this. I just didn't love it. I gave this 3.5 stars. I actually thought this was going to be like a 5-star read in the first like half of the book. It was setting itself up to be perfect, but then it just felt like a little bit flat for me. I feel like the writing style changed a little bit, and the twists I didn't love. One of the twists at the end I felt like was the most obvious twist ever. I felt like everybody had to see that one coming, but it was pretty good. I definitely would recommend it, and I'm happy I read it, but I just was a little bit let down by the second half of the book. This book follows a detective who 20 years ago lost her sister. She kind of went missing, and so she became a detective to kind of give closure to other families going through something similar to what she went through. And this girl named Ellie Black comes out of basically the woods. She's been missing for 2 years, and she's finally found, and so Chelsea, the detective, jumps right on this case, trying to figure out what happened to her to hopefully be able to prevent this from happening to other kids. Except Ellie Black is being weirdly quiet and not cooperating with anything in like a very bizarre way. So I really liked this again, especially the first half. I feel like I dropped off a little bit in the second half. Out of the 3 free-to books that I read this month, this one is definitely my favorite. I thought this book was wild. It follows this like couple who was really trying to have a kid, and they just weren't able to make it happen even with IVF. And so the woman, she has this coworker who is basically her personal assistant, and this personal assistant pitches the idea of being the surrogate mother for the couple, which sounds like a crazy idea to them at first. The wife is very like for it. She's like, this is perfect. They are willing to do a contract and everything. The husband's very skeptical, so they make sure they vet this person. They like ask for references. They figure out who she is and make sure she's like not going to be like conning them or something. They make a contract so that nothing can really go awry, except I'm not going to tell you any spoilers. This is just the last sentence here. It says, it turns out that Monica, the assistant, isn't who she says she is. The woman now carrying Abby's child has an unspeakable secret, and she will stop at nothing to get what she wants. This book had me so terrified. I was at the edge of my seat and just like scared for what was going to happen to everybody in this book. And it was just, I got cut off there, but it was just such a fun ride. I definitely recommend this one. I gave this one 4.5 stars, I think. The last mystery, and then we have historical fiction, some miscellaneous, and some romance books, but this one is like a K-pop mystery book. And overall, I thought this was decent. I tried to read this physically first and just could not get into it, so I DNF'd it for like a week and then picked it up on audio. And I found the audio copy to be a lot better. It still wasn't my favorite ever. I gave this in like the 3-star-ish range. But it was decent. It's a very short read, so overall it was pretty okay, I guess. Let's do historical fiction and miscellaneous, and then we'll do the stack of romance books. The Women by Kristen Hanna is an absolute must-read if you like historical fiction. I give this 5 stars. I am obsessed with this. This book broke my heart in the best of ways, and I just love it so much. This follows the women that were in the Vietnam War. Even though they weren't really recognized as being a part of the war at the time, they were serving as nurses. So we have our main character who goes to war and comes back with very bad PTSD, and there's really no resources to help her with it because anywhere she goes, they aren't willing to take her because she's not like really a veteran of the war. The first half of the book is kind of her in the war, and the second half is her after she came home, and it's just heart-wrenching. This is a really sad book, but it's so good. Then I read this book of poetry called When I Fall, and I fell in love with these poems. I love them so much. I gave this 5 stars. I will definitely be rereading this at some point. It's a very short book, so I definitely recommend this if you like poetry. This is specifically about like love and the ups and downs, and just had me feeling all the feels. The House of Eve is a fantastic historical fiction. It follows these two different women who you don't know how they're going to be connected at all, but eventually their stories are going to tie together. Our first main character is in 1950s Philadelphia, and basically she's on track to be the first person in her family to attend college until something might end up derailing that plan. The other person, she's in college, she meets somebody, she ends up pregnant in wedlock, and basically her significant other's family is not very accepting of her, and she's hoping this baby will change that. And I just love these stories, and I loved how they ended up connecting. It was very heartbreaking at times, but very solid read. Heartstopper 5 was fantastic. I've never been disappointed by any of these books. I think I gave this one a 3.75 stars. This, by the way, was 4.75 stars. So not my favorite of the Heartstopper books, but I did really like it, and I'm really excited and nervous for Heartstopper 6 because that'll be the last one, and I'll be devastated when I'm done the whole series. Lastly, we have a big stack of romance books. I did not realize I read this many romance until right now as I put them all together. I read 3 different Elle Kennedys, so we're going to start with that. The first one I read was The Graham Effect, and this book is everything. I gave this 5 stars, as well as the next book that's coming out in a couple weeks. I gave this one 5 stars as well. This is called The Dixon Rule. Now, these are both next generation hockey romances, so if you've read the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, this is like that series, they're kids, and now they're like hockey college romance stories. And I love them both so much. I think my favorite of the 2 is The Dixon Rule, but they were both perfection. I also read Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy, and this one I gave 3.75 stars. It's not my favorite of her series, but I still really like these books, and I'm excited for the 3rd book. That's the last book in the series. I read 2 Christina Lauren books. This one is an absolute 5-star read. This is their new book that comes out in a couple of weeks, and I'm obsessed with this. I think they did an absolute phenomenal job with this. This gave the most perfect summer, like beachy romance read, and it was just adorable. It had me feeling all the feels. I was like smiling while reading this so many times. I love this. This is like a fake marriage situation where this guy who's a part of a company has to be married for 5 years to be able to get his inheritance, and it has to be a genuine marriage. So he's married to this girl. He ends up needing to take her on vacation because his sister's getting married, and it's the first time he's gonna have to introduce his like wife to all of his family. So she has to act the part. She has to pretend she's in medical school, even though she is just she's an artist that kind of switched from pre-med to art, and it's just so fun. I love this book so much. I also read this novella from part of the Beautiful series, and I did not love this one. I gave this one like 2.5 stars, I think, or 2 stars. I'm not a fan of this series. This is like, has a lot of plot and very good balance. This is like no plot in these books, which is just not my vibe. Happily Never After is my first Lynn Painter book, and it won't be my last. I loved this. It was so cute. It's basically about these 2 individuals who are wedding like crashers. They're the people who are hired at weddings for when the officiant says like, does anyone have any like objections to this wedding? They are hired to say, yes, I object, and to explain why. Usually it's like one of the people are cheating, and they end up falling for each other, and it's so cute. Late Bloomer is a sapphic romance book that takes place on a flower farm. It's enemies to lovers, and the tension in this is absolutely adorable. Definitely recommend this one. I think I did not give my rating on this, but Happily Never After I gave 4.25 stars, and Late Bloomer I gave 4 stars. I also gave 4 stars to How to End a Love Story. This is a really cute like enemies to lovers. It has very deep and heavy topics though. The background between these 2 people is the girl's sister died when she was a teenager, and she's always blamed the guy for her sister's death, and they end up having to co-write. Her novel is being turned into a screenplay, and so they're co-writing together, so they have to make it work and have to like talk it out, and it's really good. I like this one. The Takeover was a 3-star read for me. I liked it. I just didn't love it. It's cute. It's just nothing spectacular. Like, I haven't thought of this about this book like once since I read it. Similarly, How to Plot a Payback, I liked a little bit more. I gave this some 3.5 stars. It's a very sweet and just like wholesome little romance book, but not my favorite ever. And then lastly for romance, we have Binding 13, and this one's thick. This is a 600-page YA romance book, and the font is tiny in this book, so this took a long time for me to read through. I really love this world, but I do think it's a little bit too thick. Like, there's not a whole lot of plot that happens in this book. It's kind of just like a little slice of life in high school, and I liked it. I just wish it was maybe a tiny bit shorter, so I gave this some 3.75 stars. And that's all of them. I'm not going to stack them all up again, but overall it was a fantastic reading month. 32 books in 30 days was a lot for me, but read some amazing books. I had a lot of 5 stars in there, so overall a very solid month, and I'm hoping May is just as amazing.